The Young Inevitables, Book 1, Chaos Stirs by J.H. Royal. Part 1, I Will Rest Against Fate and Deny It. Beethoven. The Near Future. Darius sat in the metal wheelchair in the cold hospital hallway wearing the stupid light blue gown that didn't cover anything. He could barely feel the paper slippers on his feet. A continuous stream of people breezed through the hallway, totally ignoring him, on their way to whatever hospital-type tasks they had. His hair hung down over his face, and he ignored all the people right back and stared at his feet. Actually, the stupid sand-colored paper slippers that his feet were in. Had been sitting in the freezing hallway for a long time. He was supposed to be going for an operation, but was starting to think maybe he had been forgotten. Maybe somewhere, people were hurling themselves down other corridors in the maze of this massive hospital, looking for him, searching. Oh well, he thought. Eventually they'll find me, hopefully, before I freeze to death. But this long wait here, now sitting in the hallway, had given him a lot of time to think about how he was up for yet another operation. He hadn't started out this way, not at all. Things had recently changed, like someone flicking a switch. He had begun healthy, very healthy. He had been built that way. A collection of the select trait DNA in a test tube. No mother, no father. He was a mule, an engineered athlete, an engine, bought and paid for, was what his old man had always said. The old man wasn't his father, and he didn't own him. He had been sent to train him. He hadn't known that till later. His old man would never have had the funds to buy an engineered person, but someone had. Just like you'd lay down lots of cash for a dog or a pony with all the right pedigree, and then give it to a professional to train. The old man stuffed all the training and toughness into him he possibly could, without breaking him. Trained him up to be one of the best. Trained him old school, hardcore, was what the old man used to say. But he didn't dwell on those memories. Instead, he remembered the grandmother's couch. She was about as much his own grandmother as the old man was his own father. He had been from the test tube to the modification lab, then set down with an old woman in the middle of nowhere. Isolated growth and training program. Livestock. And everyone had called her the grandmother, and she had been a nice lady. She had calmed him and talked to him. She had him sleep inside the porch on the old couch with her handmade quilt. The pattern of that quilt was probably more of an anchor for his nurturing than anything else was. The grandmother had crafted them both. He closed his eyes now, and he could hear her putting wood into the smoldering stove early in the morning. If he waited not too long, he would feel the crisp, cool air being pushed aside by the warmth. She moved and shuffled about the summer room. Then there would be the sound as the kettle lid clinked, the rush of water, and the scrape of it being slid back onto the cooktop. The smell of the tea brewing. When those things played in his memory, he could see and follow the patterns on the quilt that lay on the old couch. He could trace each yarn of color as it entwined with the others to join squares of flowers. It was like walking a familiar maze in his mind. Recalling this calmed him. She always called him Pony, her little pony. "Would you like a tea, my little pony boy? A tea?" But he grew quickly, and then the old man started to come every day to train him. Outside, in the dust and the heat, the training and toughening. Then, later, on the quilt again, came the food and the caring, like tempering steel, the heat, the hammer, and then to be plunged back into the cool, soothing water. And now his legs were failing. Not a good thing for a young athlete, a thoroughbred with bad legs. He had been in the meeting this morning with the owners, the team doctors, and the scientists. They described his problem. It was indecipherable to him, but the part he understood was the over-demand that had been placed on his nervous system. Causation of the role of over-engineering. He had remembered that line. A young doctor had stood up. Well, Not young to Darius, but younger than the other doctors in the room. Darius hadn't liked him from the start. He had been too cool, too slick. Dr. Slick told the room he would operate to remove the leg coordination issues. No problem, but he couldn't remove the numbness with only surgical applications. The subject would be left with a feeling of numbness, a feeling that his legs weren't there. Dr. Slick would deal with the numbness issue in an indirect way. The doctor's big idea to fix that was to link him to a drone. Dr. Slick had introduced the room to his chief technician then, an old skinny man wearing a white lab coat. They had a drone program all set up for the next level of ball playing, he had said, and that the commission had already approved the program to upgrade the engineered players. The new drone program required that all engineered players be fitted with the new memory fluid, source material, a chip from the same living crystalline substance found on Comet 772. He said he could pipe into the MFC, the memory fluid chip, to allow the drone to aid in subject system coordination. Dr. Slick said it would be seamless and that the subject would just feel like his old self, walking and running totally unhindered once again, full sport ready in less than 24 hours. Subject's leg numbness would likely remain. There was actually even a possibility of increased athletic performance. They would tap into his optic nerve to provide a video feed into his vision. The same display they had been fitting the blind with, but his video feed would come from the drone's perspective. If he had any doubt that they only considered him an expensive sports-engineered pile of flesh before the meeting, he didn't have any afterward. Virtually seamless, they said, Dr. Slick and his team. They had been really pleased with themselves. He could tell by the owner's expression that it was a done deal. Darius didn't have any choice in the matter. They would just operate on him. He even wondered why he had been brought in for the big meeting. Maybe just so they could feel better, he figured. They didn't care about him. Or most likely, it was more of their game sports psychology performance leveraging. Having him there with them and putting the successful spin on everything, all grins and no problem whatsoever, were designed to get his head in the game. Better chance of a successful operation and all that. Now, sitting here in a cold hallway, Darius wasn't so sure about all this anymore. Maybe going through life not being so damn quick and stumbling occasionally wasn't so bad. But he really didn't have any choice at all. He was owned. Property. A mule. Engineered. Through the throng of people passing to his front, Darius could not help but notice an extremely tall, dark man wearing a dark suit. Standing more than a head above the rest, he strode down the hall and crossed in front of him. The suit had a round collar like a priest, a round black band of cloth. His hair was long, real long. Dreads, Darius remembered. They were called dreadlocks. His skin was black as night, and he wore a pair of old, small-fashioned glasses with round eyepieces. No sooner had the man disappeared through the doorway than he was returning, pushing a bed piled with folded sheets and bedding. The front wheel kicked and skidded, squeaking as he went by. It seemed a strange, out of the ordinary. This tall, dark man dressed like a priest, acting like an orderly. A few moments later, he went back the other way, bedless, striding through the crowd. This time, he gave Darius a wink. Darius sat up straighter in his chair and watched his retreating back. Then, he felt a chill at the sight of Dr. Slick entering the hallway. Dr. Slick and his team, they had found him. He wasn't so sure he wanted to be found anymore. He was suddenly tense, and he tried to relax. He wouldn't let them bother him. He relaxed his grip on the arms of the chair. He didn't know why, but he was afraid of this operation. He had been through others, but before, he had never felt like the anxiety and the fear that he did now. Dr. Slick was talking over his shoulder to his team as they followed. Their surgical gowns billowed in their rush down the hallway. Darius caught a few words as they drew closer. A question had been asked. He hadn't heard the question, but he had definitely caught the familiar tone of one, and Dr. Slick stopped to answer. He turned to face his followers right in front of Darius. The doctor stood and spoke as if he was preaching to a congregation that was concentrating on every word. The original human body is weak, a waste of time. The next level is augmentation. We are lucky enough to have 3 young sports augments here this week. All are playing in the International Ball Tournament. Currently, the best research funding is with the professional sports ownership. Combine this with the lowest individual rights of their research subjects, and we are provided with rare and great opportunities for experimentation at the perimeter of scientific understanding. I will tell you, the military is closely watching what we are doing. I have augmented this subject as far as possible, but neurons overload and fail, so for the time being, he held up a finger and smiled, ownership allows experimentation on live bodies. Darius realized they didn't know who he was. He hadn't been found after all. To them, he was just background noise, another sick kid in a wheelchair. There was another question. Dr. Slick laughed. That's right, very low probability of success today, but as we are entrusted to lead the field of bioengineering, one should not shirk at this. One cannot. This is what we do. It's who we are. His tone was uplifting, inspiring. Without research such as ourselves, our great minds to lead these cattle, we would never find our way. Today we drive cattle over new ground, unexplored territory. We drive them before us, pushing them through like the death from thirst, making one that remains find water, and, he held up that finger again, and when we find that new source of water, everyone will turn to us and say, look at how far we have come into the new unexplored territory. Today, we will experiment to see if we can share a neural network between a drone and a human. Anything beyond that, well, honestly, will be luck. And they breezed on down the hallway in the same direction that the tall man had been wheeling all the empty beds and didn't even give him a single glance. Darius slumped back in the wheelchair. Livestock. That's all I am to them. Livestock. They disappeared through the doors to his left. He stood up, causing the wheelchair to clatter against the wall. The stupid paper slippers twisted on his feet. He needed to leave, now. The sound of squeaking bed wheels announced the return of the tall man. This time, he had 3 beds, and he was struggling. He was doing his best to wheel them all down the hall at the same time. The people in the hall were forced around the beds. Darius stayed where he was for the moment, standing on his numb legs, waiting for the man to pass. Then he would be gone. Out of here. The tall man switched to pushing one bed in front of him and now pulled the other beds behind him. Darius didn't know where he would go, but he was leaving. As soon as the way was clear, he pulled up even to him. Darius scrunched his legs back as far as he could to let him pass, but the entire procession stopped right there in front of Darius. I'm sorry, the big man said in a smooth and rich accent, but I'm running out of time. Excuse me, a heavy-set woman called out who was being blocked by the beds. She was draped with the faded pink top and lanyard-clipped pass card. This will only take a moment, the tall man said to her politely. Here. He turned and faced Darius once again and held out to him a little turtle. It was very green. Darius had only glanced at the woman, but suddenly he was being offered a small little turtle. Where did this turtle come from? A turtle? Things are only getting stranger. Could you help for a minute? This is my friend here, you see. He's getting restless in all this commotion. I thought I might leave him with you until I return. Excuse me. The woman thumped the beds against the tall man. Sure, Darius said. The man's gaze was hypnotic, and it held Darius unmovable. Hold him, he'll anchor you. The ice beneath the flat round glasses swam with gold flake. Darius didn't even remember the colors in people's eyes ever moving like that. Darius looked at the turtle. It had a natural geometric shapes on the shell, like bow ties on a checkerboard. He's very friendly. He won't bite. Will he pee on me? Darius asked. Excuse me. I have a client to get to. The woman pushed the beds hard enough to make them crash together. To Darius, it sounded like she was far away down a tunnel. The big man chuckled. Well, that can't be sure of. And he laughed some more. His teeth were as white as white. Do you hear that, Gerald? No peeing, he said, and gently placed the turtle on Darius's shoulder. Darius reached up and steadied it. There, now, calm down. You got what you wanted. Now stop misbehaving. But I have to go, Darius began. He remembered he had to go before they found out who and where he was. He glanced up, and the man was gone. The beds were gone. The woman was gone. Whoa, Darius thought. Daydream much? He glanced at the turtle. You came along at a bad time, he said. I need to get out of here. It turned its head very slowly, just like you'd expect a turtle to, opened its mouth, and rolled out its tongue to yawn in like super slow-mo. It made Darius laugh. What did the man call the turtle? Juro? And then an Asian woman in a uniform was in front of him. A black-brimmed cap glinted in the hospital lights. Oh, a cop or a military, thought Darius. Too late to get out of here now. Black hair tucked into a bun over a high collar. The badge that was on her cap read, Health Promotion and Protection, on its bottom edge. The top edge was ringed with symbols. Kanji? Or was it called Hanzi? He couldn't remember which was correct. A black holster was clipped to her belt and hung along one hip. About time to get this operation underway. Her voice was light, young, clean English with a slight British accent. She wore a medical mask, but Darius could tell she was smiling. Jade green eyes glinted. He glanced back down at her weapon. She was trying to placate him. There would be no escaping now, and she caught his glance. Don't worry about that. It's not for you. I don't ever remember actually using it. It's part of the uniform. Yeah, I guess, but, well, he motioned to the turtle. I have this. He's very cute, isn't he? She said, and drew a small finger delicately across his shell. A man asked me to hold him. Darius looked left down the hallway. He should be back any moment. He's a priest or a porter or something. He's been moving beds, a lot of beds. He's very tall. Yes, she said, still smiling. He is a friend of mine. So is Juro here. She tapped the turtle on the shell with a gentle fingertip. He should be back any moment. He should be coming back from there. Darius gestured to the double doors at the end of the hall. He's been taking a lot of beds that way. Darius didn't feel good. There may be no getting out of here now. The ID hanging from the strap around her neck read, Major Joy, Doctor. You're a doctor? He asked. He felt a flush of gratitude that a doctor was actually talking to him. Are you with Dr. Slick? I mean, the surgeon that will be doing my operation? He felt the turtle take a step across his shoulder. Darius moved his hand with it, cupping it so it wouldn't fall. She laughed. I'm not with Slick. I love that name. It's perfect. You're right. He is a priest, the tall man. He's all types of a priest, and then some. I'm with Badrick, the one that looks like a priest, she said. We are here to help you, as long as you want us to help you. I don't understand. I thought Slick was the doctor, the surgeon. We did the big meeting this morning. Everyone was there. You weren't there. She pulled down her mask. Pretty, he thought. No, I wasn't. But I want you to know something very important. I can't tell you how I know, other than I have studied what Dr. Slick is capable of, she said, smiling again, but in a comforting way this time. And I am fully versed in the procedure he is about to attempt on you. We know the outcome. You will not make it through the operation if you allow him to proceed. I kind of felt that already. He was standing in front of me just a little while ago, talking to his people. They pretty much said the same thing. Darius strangely felt calm. Suddenly he felt like he had a confidant, a person on his team, just like someone he could trust in the ball game. He felt hope swell up in him. And you could feel it. You can feel it. Trust that feeling you have, Darius. We don't expect you to make it through the operation. Yeah, well, I was just about to leave until the man put the turtle on my shoulder. He felt emboldened by her. Someone knew what he was feeling, knew what he had heard. He couldn't believe his luck. He was starting to feel things were going to work out okay. Are you going to help me get out of here? We can't do that. Darius reflectively glanced at her weapon again. Beside the doctor stood a middle-aged man in a suit. He must have just arrived, appearing out of the throng of people passing in the hallway. We would never use force against you, Darius. We can help you in another way. I would like to introduce to you another friend of mine, Mr. Mercury, Dr. Joy said, indicated the middle-sized, compact man. Hello, Darius, he said warmly, holding out his hand. Darius felt his stomach lurch. He wasn't getting out of here. These people had some other purpose. He shook hands while keeping his other hand cupped over the turtle. It had moved another inch. Darius shifted his hand along with it. Darius, I'm the legal representative here, the man said. He had warm eyes, dark red hair. This guy was all charisma. He made Darius feel comfortable and confident, like everything was going to be okay. "Juro," Mr. Mercury said, addressing the turtle. "Whose legal representative?" Darius asked, wondering if he was a lawyer for the slave family, his owners. "Everyone's, and yours. Consider me something like a legal oversight for this entire situation. I make sure everything goes smoothly, off without a hitch. I make sure all involved parties are notified and follow the guidelines. These good folks here, the hospital, you, the forces of chaos." "Me?" Darius asked Dr. Joy. "Yes, he's a lawyer. He makes sure no violations are incurred from our actions. I'm making sure these next procedures are all done legally. Track any possible liabilities and register full legal protections with regard to rights, freedoms, and liberties." "But I don't have any rights. The slave family owns me. I was engineered to play ball for them. I'm not entitled to my own lawyer. They made that very clear." "If you agree to this procedure, it's my job to make it clear to you that the slave family and their workings will be under our influence." He lifted his hand and splayed his palm up and open, all-encompassing, "and what I do is keep it all on the up and up, legal," he said with a warm smile. "So what Dr. Joy is saying is right? I won't live through this operation if Slick operates on me?" "Oh, I can't confirm or deny that. What I can confirm is that she is acting on behalf of a recruitment team, and they have submitted the proper paperwork for all of this. It's all in perfect order. In addition, I have ensured that they have the interest of your safety and welfare as their number one priority." Darius studied the lawyer. He felt nothing but total honesty coming from him. He was so sincere. Darius knew he could trust what he was saying. This man's messages would only ever contain the truth. What it all comes down to is right now, these kind folks are offering to help you. But you decide, Darius, if you want help. Just say it, and they'll help you. They'll ensure you are okay, and no harm will come to you today. Or, if you want them to leave, they'll leave. No harm done, no grudges, no slight. They just walk away, and you go about the day that has been planned for you. Darius swallowed. "How long do I have to decide?" Your decision has to be made now, Darius," Mr. Mercury said and glanced at the expensive-looking watch on his wrist. "You have to decide now, right now." He brought his briefcase forward. Darius was so lost in thought he hadn't seen the tall black man return. He stood on the right of the Dr. Joy and towered over the small Asian woman. "What they say is true," the tall man said in that warm voice of his. He glanced at Dr. Joy. "The room is ready." "And how exactly are you going to help me?" Darius asked, with desperation obvious in his voice. "These guys own me. They don't fool around. They have power." The tall man spoke. Mr. Badrick, he thought the young doctor had called him. "We will enter the surgery now, and Dr. Joy will proceed. The surgery that would have been nearly impossible for them will be easy for her." The young doctor took his hand in both of hers. "I will perform the surgery. For me, it is a minor procedure. I promise you will be okay." Mr. Mercury was studying him. "Why are you doing this?" Darius asked. "If you subject yourself to the other surgical team as is planned, there is a very high probability you will be dead in less than 10 minutes, Mr. Mercury said. "They can save you, make everything as it should be successful without anyone knowing. It's their job. Either life works the way it's supposed to work, and you go in there and die, or you let them help you, and your life becomes what you decide it becomes." He looked at each of them. They all telegraphed nothing but overwhelming trust. Before they had shown up, he had felt like he needed to bolt out of here, to run away from a burning building. They had appeared, and now he felt okay. He no longer felt like a bug trapped in a bottle. "Okay, I think I trust you guys." Please sit back down and we will proceed." He settled back into his wheelchair, and the big man wheeled him down the hallway with Dr. Joy and the lawyer, Mercury, following. They went through the doorway at the end of the hall and turned left, through a set of double doors, into a much quieter and wider corridor. There were a number of signs on both sides of the doors, but they had gone through too quickly for Darius to have a chance to read them. Passing through another set of double doors, they were in a large room. Monitors and lights hung from stainless swing arms. Hospital beds lined both walls. Figures draped with blankets were sleeping on the beds. Figures with caps and masks. Darius realized Dr. Slick was one of them. "Are they okay?" Darius asked. "Oh, they will wake later, remember nothing, and continue with their day as if it was normal," Badrick said. He wheeled him to the middle of the room, turned, and went back to the doors. He passed his hand over the doors as if searching for a lock and said, "Oh, we are secure." Dr. Joy knelt in front of Darius and from a small leather pouch on her belt withdrew a thing that looked like an amalgamation of a thermometer and a stethoscope. "Don't we need a mask or something?" Darius asked, nodding to the complex operating area with the array of equipment and lights. "Something to put me to sleep?" "Let's place Zero down on your lap," she said. "Badrick will hypnotize you. I don't need that contraption over there. This will be like removing a splinter, only I will be putting one in. I will insert a small black chip, a comet splinter, into your cheekbone. This tool I will be using numbs all pain and prevents infection. You won't feel a thing, but later you might experience some discomfort." "The thing Dr. Slick spoke about? Crystalline substance from Comet 77... correct." Darius thought for a moment. He looked at each of them in turn. The three people that had appeared on this day of escape were here to help him. He felt nothing but complete trust from each of them. Darius nodded. "Okay," he said. He cupped the turtle and brought him from his shoulder to his lap. Dr. Joy went to the surgery area and opened up a small metal case. Using tweezers, she extracted a silver of black crystal from it. Beside him, Badrick was kneeling. "You may forget much of this. You may have very vivid dreams. I want you to relax and go into the dream. Are you ready?" "I'm ready. I want you to look into my eyes. Look for the gold flecks in my eyes and listen to my voice. That's it. There is an image reflecting back to you from my glasses. I want you to watch it like a movie. I want you to try to see what is happening. Concentrate on the image moving on the lenses of my glasses." At first, Darius thought it was a dead garden. 3 flowers grew in a garden, standing tall like sentinels over a narrow strip of dust, a brown wedge between fields of snow. He had the turtle in his hand. In the dream, he felt the need to place the turtle into the garden. It was then he noticed the curvature of the planet. He realized his perspective was from space. He was floating far above a frozen planet, much too far to reach down and lay the turtle in the little garden. The planet's ice caps had extended from each pole to leave only a narrow wedge of earth. The tall flowers were actually towers, their bases in the earth, with their tall tops extending into the blackness of space. The towers' nearly invisible stems looked like they had been constructed of some hair-thin material. Their tops were not flowers, but space stations that looked like glass and had been grown from crystal. The tower bases were anchored along the edge of the planet's last river. Somehow he knew the tower stems were designed to scrub clean the poisoned atmosphere, and their station tops stored the life and knowledge of regrowth. Once the planet's atmosphere could properly support life, the preserved life forms, the thousands of minds, and the memories held like seeds in the tower tops would be released, and civilization would flourish once again. And then he watched as one of the towers fell. It didn't fall sideways like a tall forest tree cut by a lumberjack, but it fell straight down, collapsing back onto itself. The thin stem shriveled and piled up like a mess of thread, and the top crashed to earth. Darius heard a sigh, but it was not him that sighed. Someone else was here, something else here with him, watching with him. The mind of a machine, an intelligent machine. And this was its garden. Its garden was dying, and once that happened, the machine too would die. The machine's last hope was the survival of the garden, mankind's last hope. Darius's view changed. He plummeted from space like a bird through the clouds and dropped towards the surface. He saw a vast army traveling across dry land. This army had pulled down the tower, and now had moved and was attacking the base of the next tower, the middle tower. His views spun again to other people, defenders, They collected at the tower base. Some wore long white robes, others black robes, others brown robes, the color of sand, defenders of the towers. Then things sped up rapidly. The movie was set on fast forward. The army overran the peaceful groups and the towers fell. The view quickly rolled backwards in time. More towers were built. Then time advanced and the towers were down again. This time, the pieces changed. The machines on the surface. The time sped back up and everything was lost to snow and ice. He understood that the machine had shown him each possible evolution, backwards and forwards in time, and each event, each attempt to save the garden and the towers had played out in failure, and the garden was lost. Then time stopped, and Darius was shown a series of images out of history, a figure praying, a man wearing golden armor pulling a glowing sword from a stone, a woman in a silver cloak and shield with a fleur-de-lis and golden hair leading an army of men, a man in vivid green giving gold to the poor, a Red Cross medic tending to the wounded soldiers as explosions erupted all around him. Then that final image changed. It was the young man, the army medic, but now he was giving aid to the female with the fleur-de-lis. Her scalp was bleeding, and he ran a damp cloth across her brow.